Okay, let's do this. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, so we have a pretty typical flank situation at the start of the round. We have our one, two, three, and I left a little space here because the one man, give a one man a little bit of spacing, right? But I know Mattbob's like way out there, but yeah. Oops. So we were just gonna be discussing like some of the basic things that a flank player, like whether they're one, two, or three man, should watch out for, and also some, I guess, situational stuff depending on what happens. Um, so let's start with the basic stuff with our little one man here. So what are some basic things that one man should be doing or watching out for? And I guess we'll start with Map since he's the premier one man.
Well, the most important part is spacing. It's just you need to find that balance. You need to find how can you be a threat, but also be safe from two and three. Yet also provide a threat to those people and cover your two. So what you can do, what I like to do is I like to try and pocket the one. So what that means is that I like to go outside a little bit, and so that way now that if you can form a triangle between me, two, and one, and so that way two is going to have a really hard time trying to hit me, but at the same time, we one and two and we can pick off one really easily and also force their flank back.
You're kind of pinstering the one here.
Yeah, you
Let me move the
pincer
two.
the one, kind of like that. Yeah.
So like this, but you need to do it pretty quickly because then, or else the two will swap onto you, right? The
Not
other
not
two.
necessarily. You don't need to do it quickly. You just need to make sure you keep having an initiative. The moment you lose your initiative, like when one and two lose their attacks and have to start blocking, that's when the situation gets kind of sketchy. Because the most obvious thing to do right now, if you're the one on the other team, is to start backing up, and now you're starting to roll the flank around, given your connector options.
Guy starts backing
Yeah,
up.
that guy. That's the ideal situation in this. And then now one follows through, and now the flank's getting bent, and now you have a push.
Okay. So this is a, would you call this an
That's
aggressive strategy?
Oh yeah, of course. If you want to play aggressive on flanks, even if you're playing passive, you need to be aggressive. If you that makes sense, an aggressive defense almost because you need the key to winning a flank is initiative. If you have it, you win.
So the one man is the one that sets the tempo, right?
Yes, the
Like
one
what
if the
you.
two because what happens if two tries to set the tempo, the moment the one slacks any pressure, they can hit by three people. So with the one, you have a little bit more leeway on the pacing of it because you only have to worry about two people.
If you have an aggressive two, then that means that he's kind of
That yeah.
pincered in between these two guys,
Now
right?
he's pincered, and now even three can go over if he has an opening. But when
Right.
one's the one that sets the tempo, it's a lot easier for them to set because that way he only has to worry about two threats instead of three.
Okay. And I know Reddish, you sort of just like taking both of these guys on, right? So what are some of the things you do as a one man?
I'm not like Mattbob at all. I don't know. He does a lot better job at pushing a flank like this. But the main thing I want to do is if I know who I'm going against as a one, get him, just kill him as fast as possible, or maybe just target swap to the two. Because like my dueling abilities obviously could get me that kill pretty easily.
So when you try to swap onto the two, I guess you're relying on your two man as well, right? Because you're kind of pincered in between these two guys, right?
Yeah.
So would you hope that your two man also attacks at the same time?
I don't know about the same. I mean, yeah, that could work, but the one on the other side is just gonna either if it's you, you're gonna gamble like 100% of the time.
Right. I've noticed that sometimes when I gamble, they still get the block off a lot of the times if they're good. Like Mattbob, I have a GIF of Mattbob on the melee server. He literally does like a 360 and blocks like a ballerina spin, blocks me and stabs the other guy. It was crazy. Um, yeah. When it comes to, I guess we didn't hear from Wi-Fi yet. I'll go last. But Wi-Fi, what do you usually play? One, two, or three?
Okay, well I play third, but I play all the positions basically. So ideally, what would happen is the one pressures the enemy edge, always, constantly, and the second man also this is what I would love. This is like ideal. First man goes and applies pressure onto the edge, and the second man helps and prepares and gets the up down on edge, and the third man on the would help and get the kill on the second either A trading or B saving him. And then if you kill by the time that the second is already applying pressure to the one, the second on the enemy team is probably just focused on just alleviating pressure for their edge. So by the what is it? Their second will focus your second. But the connector, the third, would always try to focus the second. For the edge is already just trying to kill the enemy edge.
Means we have this 3 that's kind of in a vulnerable situation, and the 2, if the 1 blocks here, we have the 2 here that's about to get killed, and also the 3 here is about to get killed as well.
Yeah, but the thing is what I'm banking on is if the 1 and 2 can get the up down on the edge instantly, then if I could save the 2, the edge already has time to go and get to the third man.
You insta kill the 1, then
You instant kill the 1, and then potentially, let's just say, like, best case scenario, just you have to trade out the 2. The 2 is just done, but the third man can get the 2. The edge should have time enough to just come in and stab the third on the right, or just stab him on the side.
so the second man initiates in this scenario then?
Yeah, the first man will come in with an up, just alleviating pressure onto the enemy edge. The second man will come in and try to up down the enemy edge as fast as he can. The connector will target swap and kill the second man instantly, and then the edge will come around and stab the enemy connector on the side. That is like ideal.
To get those up downs correct.
Yes.
Down pat. So one thing that I'll do when I'm edge, I'm trying to learn 2-man now because I'm never given a good 2-man, but when I play edge, like I kind of like initiating the offense, so like I'll stab this guy. And the problem, sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't, because sometimes the 1-man will block me and then he'll do something like this. He'll go right towards the 2 after blocking me. If I pick up on his switch, I'll stab him. But then if you have a really good player, he'll just he'll block me like this and then go right back into attacking. And that's even if I gamble him. So like I'm not sure if it's the best thing to do to stab the other guy first, because then you're giving up your initiative, right? And then he's allowed to just either stab you or stab the other guy. So that's a tricky situation I find myself in sometimes. And then if I do try going for a switch, so say I'm like pushing this guy, then bam, I hit this guy, he can sometimes block it, and then I'm pinched between these 2 guys, right? And I'm like, oh, what do I do now? I guess I'm dead.
Well, my reply to that is just keep
Keep it.
going. You just fucking keep going. Like if you're gonna dive, you just commit to it. If you try and S key out of that, you're dead because they're gonna need you up down. So once you're there, you just keep going, and now you just 1 and 2 have to be on you. 3 is now worried about you, and now your 2 guys can get some potential backstabs.
So you're
Like,
saying instead of S keying, keep going like this?
Yeah, if you're already in the triangle of death, you just keep going, and now you just survive. You don't try and get kills. You just try and survive from back there, and then if you have a good rest of your edge, they should get some pretty nice. They should get at least 1 backstab, and now that's a 2v3 within your favor.
Once you're behind them, you're forcing people to turn their backs, right?
Yeah, and now 2 and 3 can hit their backs pretty easily, and 3 is also a concern now because what if you're going to target switch onto him?
Right.
Of course,
I think I agree with Mattbob, but in the sense, I think if you have a good edge, hypothetically, you could just get your second to help your third and wipe the third instantly, and then you could just get the freest backstabs. So like even if you're in the triangle and the 1 and 2 are dedicated on it to you, I would suggest that like the second man, the connector already knows that the second man might possibly just go for the backstab, but if he target swaps, he might catch him off guard and instantly just kill the third, and then you easily just win the flank by just backstabbing the rest because they're already targeted on the edge. So hypothetically, if you like, let's say the 1 dives in, he's stuck in the triangle of up down. If the second comes in, if the third applies pressure to, let's say, the third man or fourth man, the second can just come in and stab the third slap because he's not expecting it. And then by the time that the edge player or the one on our side dies, the second can already get a backstab on 2, and then the third, after killing the third man on the enemy side, they could just come in and up down the edge. You just win the flank.
Okay. It is sort of hard to imagine some of the like the more long-winded explanations.
It is.
So I think when it comes to like outer play, there's like the whole Mattbob, like kind of like the like a big gap and sort of like the ISO play. But there's also like the team play where you like stay within 2-man spacing and then hope to get swaps, right? So when you're trying to like wrap around, let's see here, because I actually made a diagram about this. So this is my ideal situation if you're gonna wrap around the opponent. This kind of situation, right? Because if you're like this, then they have their back to your 2, and then their 1 is pinched between the 1 and the 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, that situation happens very, very rarely. Most of the time, they will just S key out of there. And
Also,
then,
with wrapping, when let's say the flank is kiting and let's say the edge is trying to wrap, there's a chance that the enemy edge will just not focus you, and they could just swap onto your second man and potentially just wipe them. And if he wipes them, then the third and second man are not going to focus the edge; they're just going to go straight for the connector spot.
Okay, so this situation, so you should never look to always like wrap because they're just gonna ask you out of it most likely.
It depends.
well,
I
no,
think
the
wrapping is
with
fine.
with the wrap, you're not gonna get kills with it. If the enemy team tells you they're not gonna get kills with it, what it will do, however, and sadly this diagram only shows 3. If you go the 4, 5, 6, 7, they now have to adjust their mid to account for this, and that creates a bulge in their line, which is now it opens them to many more avenues of attack.
Yeah, connectors are probably just gonna if let's say the entire let's say the enemy flank is just kiting and you're wrapping them. The first and second man, all they're gonna do is they're just gonna keep pushing forward, and the enemy 1 and 2 are just gonna keep stepping back. Sometimes they won't push, or sometimes they won't like let's say make a critical push and just dive to the second man. What will most likely happen is that connector will just swap onto enemy connector, and the third man, instead of like playing with the flank, they'll just go straight into mid and get backstabs. That's probably the ideal situation when it comes to wrapping.
Yeah, because with the wrap, their line eventually has a giant. It's the goal is to make their line into a L shape, so that way your mid can then just capitalize and break through that corner. Because it forms a triangle, but it's inherent with their line. So if you back off of that triangle, you're screwed now.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about baiting your, I guess, your teammate. I know Wi-Fi, you do a little bit of this.
I'm an expert.
Okay, so baiting, I guess, the 1-man of Eskies or whoever it is, they stay within like stabbing range to protect the guy they're baiting, right? They're like around here. So then you're hoping their 1-man comes in. Hoping that you can catch, you can either, yeah, you can catch this guy as he stabs. Best case scenario is that he blocks and you get a free kill or you trade him, right? So I guess this would be a defensive strategy, sort of.
Seems like you're just like getting wrapped, but you're not kiting. Because like if the edge is S keying, then that means that they might just wrap around and go for the second. It's one of those situations where you absolutely have to wait until the edge attacks or the enemy's second attacks before you throw any attack. You will just have to stand there and just hold a block. As soon as you, let's say, attack edge instantly, he's just gonna block and swap to second, and then you won't be able to gamble. And let's say the second falls, then he's already has his turn. He's already about to block you. Basically, just killed your second man for no reason. Ideally, what would happen was basically would have to go if the enemy edge is going to dive onto second, they're going to kill him instantly, and you're there for baiting.
So
You would have to enemy edge pressure second. You're there. The ideal situation that would have to happen is that you would have to hold onto your attack as edge, either hold or just hold a block. either or. And then as soon as the edge throws an attack, you throw an attack instantly.
Right, because they can't block, right?
They can't block it, and they're probably not expecting it. The thing with edge is they will only attack second man as if they knew if it was free. If you're holding there with a block, they're probably assuming that you're not going to attack. But if you're holding an attack, it's probably a different scenario. I know for a fact that if you're just holding a block as your edge and the enemy edge is going to pressure the second, you could easily just stab the edge. He will never expect it most of the time.
So let's talk a little bit about two-man, the most dreaded position. Before we get into theory, why do you guys think that people don't like playing two, and is it really that bad of a position to be in?
Mattbob, you go first.
All right. What I've found with two, it is you have to read everything, and you are more determined. You cannot cause events. You are therefore like you are pushed by the events around you. So if you have an aggressive 1, you have to support him. If you have an aggressive 3, you have to support him. But if you're an aggressive 2, you're kind of just gonna die. You can't. It's very hard to be a very aggressive 2 because simply just there's so many avenues of attack that you have to take now. Because now you have the 3, 2, and 1 can now push you or attack you very easily if you try and dive. And normally on the flank, it's some of their better duelists on that flank. So it's just very hard to make anything on your own.
This guy's kind of screwed right now, isn't he?
Yeah. It's just, as the 2, you are so dependent on uncontrollable events that it's understandable why a lot of people don't like it, because you can't start anything. You are dependent on your teammates and then follow through with that.
Yeah,
So
well,
go ahead.
Continue. I think for second man, it's a more reactive role. You basically can't start anything. As soon as you start an attack, they will instantly punish you. You can't like go a second and then just like let's say target swap or just go for straight stabs, etc. You can't do any of that. You basically have to wait until the enemy throws an attack before you throw anything. And also keep in mind when you're playing second man, you have like 3 directions just of attacks just directed straight towards you. Edge is going to swap onto you 100% of the time. Connector is going to swap onto you 100% of the time. Second man is probably just going to, their enemy second is probably just going to apply pressure to you at all times.
It takes one other guy swapping, right, to kind of screw you over.
Basically.
One thing I find as a two-man, those few times I've gone it, is like, I feel like whenever I go for a stab, like I get blocked and then just die. Like I just die, and like I don't feel like I can. Yeah, I agree with you guys. I can't really initiate anything. I always have to wait for something to happen and then react to that.
A reactive role.
The thing with 2, you have to apply pressure, yet you don't really get any kills by applying that pressure. Because if you try and get kills, you're going to lose your pressure and then you die because you're pretty much everyone's watching you. So most people are going to block your attack. So you have to apply the pressure to make them focused on you, but you can't get the kills from that.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about one thing that I noticed a few people do. I think I noticed this with it was Equal and Power or Equal and Adam or someone. So the 1 and 2 man, they'll do something like this. They'll go really close to each other and then push either the 2 or the 1. They'll walk around. They'll walk around like this, and they'll just up down. They'll up down anyone they come across. So whether they want to swap onto the 2, they'll just kill the 2 instantly, or they'll kill the 1 instantly. And if you try to attack them, they'll just up down you. So like, how do you beat this right here?
Well, it's just they just have better cohesion than your side. There's not really much to do. If you don't work together with your flank, you're not going to do anything. So whoever the Equal and either Adam or Equal and Power simply just know how to play together, and they do that efficiently. And now remember, while they do this, if they're going to focus one guy, that means another guy's completely open. Like someone on the other team has complete free reign to stop them. And if you can get an up down on someone, that means someone has an up or down stab on the up downers. If it's a completely even situation. So
it's a timing thing then.
It comes down to timing, and it's just that means either the 1 or 2 threw their attack too early and lost their attack. It's one thing that I hate seeing people do is just run up to someone and just throw a straight stab, because that's an easy block, and now they can't attack you for another second. So you have a full second to set something up before they can react to it.
I have a really bad habit of just throwing a straight stab at someone.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like you have to apply pressure, but you can't throw that attack because once you throw the attack, if it's blocked, you lose all the pressure and therefore the initiative.
For me, I think it's like if the enemy 1 and 2 are basically like sticking together very like cohesively, and their idea is to let's say for the sake of this, they want to dive second man. Ideally, the third man would have to like stab the second that's already going in for an up down instantly. As soon as they do that, let's say the second dies, but you kill the enemy second, then it's a 2v2 scenario and it's way easier and way more doable.
right. Yeah, in this case, it'll be a 2v2. The third one I really have a chance to go mid because he has got a guy right here, right? So, I want to pick up on something Mattbob said because he said something very, very important. He said, push, but don't throw a stab. So I've seen this a lot actually. So say this one man will be pushing and pushing, 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 and then suddenly stab is actually thrown here, right? So you got the one man S-keying and block spamming. Something I used to do a lot, S-key and block spam. So all of a sudden he's here because he's trying to protect himself, and then bam, kills the two man. Right. So this is like vintage Mattbob strat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the thing is that like if someone is blocking, they are not a threat to you. You can discount them and worry on who is actually throwing a stab. Like whoever's holding a stab is a threat. Whoever is holding a block is not a threat.
So, in the sake of this, if let's say the enemy edge is just S keying and they're block spamming, 1 and 2 can easily just dive the second man and get a free up down out of it. And then by the time that the second is dead, then the third is going to feel the pressure, try to swap onto the second man, but the second man is already like probably already recovered, and then he's going to block the third man. And then the third and the second will just up down the enemy third, and then the edge would just go for a 1v1.
Right. So if you have an S-keying one man that's not supporting his two man, then the two man is just screwed, right? So you need a proactive one man. Or if he can come back and trade, that's pretty good, right?
Yes, but at the same time, the initiative still lies with the team that got the 2 because you killed 2. Now 3's under pressure from 2 players. Because say 1 on red and 2 on blues taken out, 2 and 3 are still closer to the enemy mid than 1 is to enemy mid. Like looking at that, 3's still under pressure, and remember 1 just threw his stab. 2 has a faster stab now, so 1's probably gonna have to take the defensive now, and now 2 and 3 can use that initiative to take 3, and they go down the line. The purpose of flank isn't to kill the enemy flank. The purpose of flank is to push their mid. If you can get past their flank and get to mid is where you win the game or the battle.
Yeah, I've run down the line of mid with down stabs before. It's a great feeling.
Oh, it's the best feeling in the game, like hands down. It is the best feeling of the game to just run down a mid and get like 5 stabs.
Yeah, the bastard screw fight definitely has shown that to me.
Mid is like a distraction then almost, right? I
No,
mean, not
mid-
mid. I mean, flank is a distraction pretty much that you just want to get towards mid as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
like you want to get to mid because that's where you win. Because let's say you have a group of 5, so you say there's a 10 on 10 going on. The blue team split 5 sides on both flank. Red is 10 in mid. You can control the battle as red now. Because now you have a 10v5 and then another 10v5.
I would argue that it's less so. I would say that the 1 and 2 in a scenario is probably not going to get any like backstabs in mid as consistently as the third and fourth man. Third and fourth man probably have it way, in a sense, easier, but also like way more pressure inducing. Because as third man and fourth man is connector. If you, let's say, third man target swaps, kills the enemy fourth, and then the third and the four just up down the third, then those 2 people are just going to run down the line. 2 people running down the line and just getting kills is just going to instantly win the mid. Like 1 and 2, basically what their plan is the second man might have to the 1 and 2 basically have to either make sure that the second man doesn't target swap onto the third man. And if the second, let's say, kills the enemy second, because let's say the second wants to target swap onto third, misses, and then the second just takes advantage and wipes him. The second can hypothetically just help out, kill the connector on third, The third will just help the fourth up down the fourth person, and then that's 3 people that's going straight down into mid and getting backstabs. The edge could just hold a 1v1.
Yeah,
Is
Edge is a
both important
duelist.
and worthless at the same time. Edge is very useful to win a flank, but as soon as the second man wipes the enemy connector and the enemy second man, then the edge pretty much all he has to do is just hold a 1v1. Make sure that the enemy edge doesn't try to kill the second man or the third man.
Now what if the second man is just getting like instant target switch and they're sick and tired of it, so they start just trying to SQ. So they're like, SQ this, I'm just gonna SQ. Is this viable like at all to prevent
No.
like this instantly
No,
getting?
because then the enemy second and the enemy edge would just up down the edge or your edge, and then as soon as your edge is done, they could just wrap in instantly.
Like if your 2's playing passive, your 1 has to play passive. It's just that's the only way it's gonna work because they're not able to punish anything the other flank does.
So U shape is not good. Do not have a U
No.
shape.
I mean, again, if it's within stab range, it's fine, but then it's not a U shape. It's just it's as long as the 2 is able to punish, it's fine. If the 2 is not in range to punish, it's bad.
It's a free kill on your edge, right?
It's a free kill on edge, or even worse, a free kill on 3.
Right.
Third and fourth man are like the key spots that need to
Yeah.
fail.
If you kill 3 and 4, your mid's fucked. That's just simple as. The whole point of edge is how to open up their connector to then open up their mid.
Okay. How would you deal with a very aggressive edge player that's just pushing your edge?
There's 2 ways you can do it. So let's say 1-on-1 are just going kind of at it. One way to do this is if you're being pushed, you can either just draw them out and try and get them into a 1v1. That's very effective. It neutralizes both of you. You just got to be careful while doing it. The second way to do it is you play passive. You have to use your 2 as bait and wait for then you got to target switch onto the 2. That's the second way how to deal with it because 1's just going to go full ham on. So he's going to be overextending. So he's probably not going to be within support range of his 2. Therefore, you can just get a quick stab on him if possible. And then another way, of course, is, again, because he's playing so aggressive, he's disconnected from his team, you can just pressure him instead.
If an edge is being aggressive, I think the best case is just to force both edges to just 1v1 because then you just have a 2v2 opportunity. However, if you're playing edge and the enemy edge, you know for a fact, does not want to attack you, they'll just probably like throw straights. They're not going to do any crazy shit. They're just going to throw straights. They're 100% going to swap onto second man. So the ideal situation is to just not stab, wait for him to see if he's going to target swap onto your second man, and just throw a stab instantly as you see him trying to swap. Because then as soon as you do that, the edge is probably not suspecting it. Probably thinking, oh, I got a free kill, and our second is going to just destroy the rest of the flank. But if you can get a kill on the edge player, as soon as he tries to kill the second man, and let's say he trades off your second man, the edge could just swap onto the second man. The enemy second, rather. Hard to explain. But it's like,
Yeah.
if the enemy edge is diving you, and it seems like they're not going to try to duel you, like that, kind of similar to that. Oh, and if they want to swap onto the second, hold off your stab. Don't even throw anything. Don't block. Don't stab. Just hold off. As soon as he's about to stab your second man, you throw a stab instantly. Then by the time you do that, your second might die, but their edge is going to die. And then what you can do as edge is just pressure the second man. Oh, bam, it turns into a 2v2 scenario.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Well, if it's a trade, it doesn't really matter. The situation remains the same. The 4 just becomes a 3. The 2 becomes the 1. And the
Yeah,
3
but you can also say that like if the edge is trying to forcibly bait your second man and you immediately sweep him and it's a 2v2 scenario, it's on equal footing. It's like you don't have to do anything drastic. You can basically just play safe. You just have to play a man down on both ends. So they're both gonna play normally.
Yeah,
They're not gonna be
remains
aggressive or they're not gonna be passive. They're just gonna play how they normally play.
which is either aggressive or passive.
Yeah, I guess you can say that, but you
It's
can
just
also
the
just
situation remains the same.
the situation remains the same, but it
It's
basically just wipes
whoever's
off an
pushing
aggressive
is
edge.
usually at advantage at that point.
Yeah.
Which
You
is
can also
hard to
you can also just say if you have a good second and they block the edge target swap, then bam, you're in a 3v2 scenario and you can easily just sweep them.
So when you say you're a one man and you want to push them, do you always push them with feints, or can you push them just by holding a block as well?
I would not recommend holding a block whatsoever.
I don't recommend throwing feints either.
What I like to do, I just hold an attack. I like it forces like even if it's just a straight, even if it's just going to be a straight stab in the end, it forces them to react to me. The moment they are forced to react to me, I have initiative. I can control the terms of engagement.
Because like we can talk like about complicated strategies all day, but it's really the bread and butter that's gonna like get the job done. So I guess your bread and butter would be just pushing their one by holding a stab, and then just quickly swapping onto the two.
Well, not necessarily. I just, the main goal for me is to pressure as many people as I can to apply openings for other people. Because it's just you apply enough pressure, you break their equilibrium, and then one of your teammates gets a nice stab in, and then they can just start rolling. Due to now
so pressure could mean them just simply turning their backs.
Pressure
right?
is them having to put them in your mind. If you are in their mind, you are applying pressure to them. If you have a stab throwing, they need to react to you more. If you have a block, they don't need to react to you as fast. They're not as much of a priority. Yeah, if you're behind them, that seems like a 1v1, but their 2 is now scared of you, and their 3 might now be scared of you because he's behind you. You are afraid of what you can't see.
This would be a really good opening that I've seen you do many times, actually.
Yes, that's perfect, because now
That's
2
one of
has
the
a lot of
best
options. 2 can get backstab, or 2 can start applying pressure to 3, and now roll down the flank.
I think
No,
the
you're
best scenario
letting a
is
three
At
switch.
this,
destroying the third.
at this point, it just depends what's closer. If the 1-on-2 is closer, go to that. If the 3 is closer, go to that. It's just whatever's closer and whatever lets you snowball the fastest.
I think, but also, I would say probably going for the third is better than the second, but it really is like a case by case scenario on whatever is closer or not. If they're ideally the same distance, second should immediately just go into the right if the one is distracting both of them. Because then if the connector wins their connector battle, then the third can target swap onto the fourth, and then the fourth could just easily run down the line with the third. Checkmate at that point. They're all done. The mid is done. And while you are holding a 1v2, you basically just won the mid in the round.
I want to bring Reddishh into this. What do you like playing as? Like, I know that you've been playing, I think, connector recently. But if you had a choice, would it be the 1, 2, or 3 man?
I mean, recently I've been playing like 2 for Bacon or Gray. But um, yeah, I'd like to play 2. Yeah, because I haven't really been playing it as recently, but I want to learn it like you.
Psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're never giving good 2s, so why not just be the 2?
Just be the 2.
Materialize.
Did you play 2 against, what was it, the 63 that we fought? Or
I
who was
played.
it?
I played 1.
Okay. So yeah, I guess like sometimes with Reddishh, I've noticed with you that you'll kind of like abandon your teammates and just like you'll do great in like a 1v3 and you'll hold it for the entire match, but I think you are lacking a little bit of team play. But it works for you because you can just hold a 3v1 for the entire match. I guess if you're like the one man, that'll work better.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just a bad mindset or like a play style. I don't know. 2, I feel like I could do more because if I'm getting pushed, I could easily target swap either left or right, or I'll just dive in, and then do a 1v2, which is better for me.
Because if you can hold this all day, then you're allowing, if these guys don't die, you're allowing them to double team the 3 and go mid, right?
Yeah, basically, and I still have that chance of winning that 1v2. So
Yeah, you do. You have a chance of winning like a 1v4.
Did do that during 63.
Cool. So is there any like other like simple moves like that aren't like anyone can just start doing and like improve um their results in group fights?
One thing
Target swapping.
target swapping is pretty good. One thing that is really important is don't force anything. Play with time. You don't have to force it instantly. If the whole other team's dying, but you're winning. There's nothing more you can do. You just do like you need to be patient. Don't think you have to win it quickly because your team's gonna lose, because then you're gonna start losing and it's bad. You just play it slow, be patient. If the opportunity arises, fucking snatch that shit and run all the way to where you need to go. But don't try and force anything that you can't force.
I think more people should just target swap. It is the easiest way to get kills. Most people just don't block target swaps unless they're extremely experienced. But even some experienced players just don't like die to target swaps. Get target swapping.
I actually want to write down some of the the simple things that like anyone can do. It's just I want to write them down. Okay, so I think Mattbob said push while holding a stab. Don't hold a block. Don't feint spam. You want to push while holding a stab, and this is mainly for the one man, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, mainly for one man because he only has to worry about two people.
What else was there? The two man is a reactive position.
Yep.
Normally, yeah, unless you have an insane two man, but it's very.
Nah, even Section agrees with that sentiment.
Yeah. I guess my third one would be just be patient. Really, you have to be patient.
Okay. I guess for number 4, target swap. Like always, target swap, right?
Always target swap.
I would say just apply pressure to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
How do you be efficient while also being defensive? Like, say you're against like a power Atom flank and you're freaking
Stay alive.
and you're
Stay alive.
You're pork and razzle. Like, what do you do?
Stay alive. Use distance. Stay the fuck alive. Like you stay alive, they have to react to you, which means they can't just like ooga booga the flank. They have to stay with you. Just staying alive will win you the fight.
Yeah, I said using distance is by like the best strategy against
Maintain
Atom and power.
distance. Make sure that SQ properly. Always block first before you do anything, etc.
I've noticed if you get too block spammy though, you can allow your teammates to get killed, right?
Yeah, because if you're block spamming, you're not throwing an attack, you're not applying the pressure anyway.
So I'd say look for trades and also block.
More like a reactive thing. It's like you block the first attack and they don't have a turn, and then you can attack. Let's say just target swap.
I think like with group fighting, like if you have the duelist mentality is always like stay alive, like always block, right? But then with group fights, you're in a team, so it's no longer all just about you. It's about keeping the guy beside you alive, or at least trading him, right? So it's like a different mentality that you have to have.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Kind of cliche, but work together.
Find someone to up down with, right?
Coordinates.
Yeah, like get a buddy, get a
Coordinates.
group fight buddy that you just play with next to all the time, and then just work with that.
A buddy.
You could just say pay attention because a lot of people just get tunnel vision.
Yeah, bigger picture.
With me, like everyone knows I'm gonna be up stabbing, so the guy beside me, he's always down stabbing. My coordination isn't that good. Like I'm not that good at knowing like, when he's gonna stab. But just like having the other guy do the opposite stab, just like no communication, just bam, like it's very helpful because then the up down will happen eventually, right?
I would probably put for number 7 like connector. Winning connector equals winning mid. When you win on connector, you easily could just get backstabs in the mid, so then you would easily win the mid and win the round.
think yeah, that's a strategy, but I think we want to talk about more like how do you win connector, right?
I think I would probably just say like pay attention to the left and right of an individual to see if they're like lacking, if they're slacking and they're not paying attention towards you, and you can easily just target swap onto them.
So your peripheral vision, pretty much, like don't always
Pretty
just
much.
focus on the guy in front of you.
Always focus on the people that are around the person.
Focus on the guys beside your.
Focus on the guides aside. What is it? Focus on the two people that are besides the person that is directly in front of you.
Don't get tunnel vision.
Don't get tunnel vision. Always pay attention to the people that are left and right of your opposite opponent. As soon as you tunnel vision to the opponent that's right in front of you, that's how you easily get yourself target swapped, and then you just created a hole. Could either
Yeah.
like lead to the demise of your mid or lead to the demise of your, like a flank, etc.
Because with flank, a lot of the times, like your regiment or your team or whatever will be like, okay, you're good at blocking and staying alive and stuff. Okay, go play flank. But it's like flank requires like a certain mindset, right? Like everything we've talked about here today, like stuff like Mattbob saying push, but push with while holding a stab, and then switch, and it's like you don't really like know how to do that until you play flank a lot, right?
Oh
It's
yeah,
more of an experience thing.
Yeah.
flank is like it's its own thing in a group fight. Like mid's its own thing, connector's its own thing. Flank is a whole other thing. Everything is exactly its own thing, and you just got to play it a lot to get used to it. But it's such a there's not a lot of places to play flank, so it's hard to get a lot of experience with it.
Right. There's only this side, and then there's the other side. And
Yeah,
there's
so
like-
that's 6 people in total going by this graph that can play flank in a given group fight.
it's either the best players or the worst players, because if you want to kite a strong flank, you'll just get the worst players and tell them to like S key or whatever, right?
Ideally, when you get your worst players and they S key, tell them to just play reactive. Tell them to only throw an attack as soon as you block an attack. Not let them don't start the fight. Let them start a fight when kiting.
When kiting, let the enemy
Opponent start.
start stabbing.
Not to strike. Stabbing is probably the better phrase.
Look for trades, I guess. Or
No, I'd probably just say look for unexpected or unsuspecting people. Like let's say if the entire flank is just pushing you guys and you're kiting, second man can just hypothetically just dive edge and kill edge or target swap onto third. But ideally, what you would do is you would just wait for them to throw an attack. You block it, and they don't have a turn, and you could do whatever you please for a 1-second window. Basically, just have to wait on what they do before you do anything.
okay. So the outer man or the one man is mainly an aggressive position. The two man is mainly a reactive position. And we haven't really talked about three man at all. I think because three man is closer to mid. But you obviously team play is involved with a three man, right? You have to see what your one and two men are doing.
Basically, have to coordinate with your 1 and 2 to see what the general plan is of a flank. If the 1 is planning on target swapping onto the 2, you would have to just tell your second to focus their enemy edge, and then you would get the third man to basically just put pressure onto the connector so they don't swap onto the people that are diving in.
Now, have you guys ever, like before live is called, told the guy beside you, okay, this round we're gonna up down the one man, or this round we're gonna up down the two man? Like, does that ever work?
Yeah, I did that against TRR like last night with Bacon. It helps it helped for that flank because they would do is that they would just basically consolidate as one person to try to coordinate one downs and or up downs. And all I told Bacon was to just hold it down and then I'll hold it up, and basically just target swap onto King Monkey, and we won the flank multiple times. It helps a lot because if you tell them what to do, then they'll be like, okay, that is my set plan. That's what I'm going to focus on. But you can also say a con of that is, let's say, like, if the plan fails, then you're unsure. Like, let's say, oh, I did it and the edge died and we didn't kill the enemy edge. And it's kind of like, it's basically done. The flank is probably already dead by that point. If you
Okay.
coordinate and if it succeeds, and let's say like killing a second man or killing the edge, then it is definitely worth it to coordinate. Coordinate a plan beforehand before initiating.
Yeah, I think if you're noticing like tendencies and patterns in the enemy, then it's okay to have a plan. Otherwise, like you'd never really know what the enemy is gonna do that round, right? So you don't want to be like so constrained to a plan and then not have that fluidity of just doing whatever you want, like in the moment.
I kind of agree with that, but I still think that having a general plan on what to do with a flank even before you even play a single round is totally fine and definitely works. It doesn't work as soon as they figure it out and they counterplay it, and then you would basically have to swap plans on the fly. You would to say, oh well, this person has to do this person, or this person has to swap onto this person in order to win. It works for a bit, but as soon as they know what you're doing and you keep doing the same plan and you like fail, that's when you have to start like thinking of other ideas to do.
So you don't think it's enough just to tell say you're the one man. It's not enough for the one man to tell the two guy, okay, down stab, I'll up stab, and that's about it. You want to also tell them like, okay, we're gonna push the one, or okay, we're gonna swap onto the two, like that. That's much better, you think?
Yes, I think that's 100% better. As soon as you have a clear goal on who to target, you may tunnel vision more, but it's also it's a more clear idea of what you want to do with a flank. If you tell your like second man, we're gonna focus the second man and we'll up down him. You throw it down, I throw it up. You're probably gonna be like, oh okay, and because it's a simple task. If you make it sound simple, then they'll probably end up doing it. If you try to make it overly complex, they won't do it. You just tell them, oh yeah, just walk forward, throw it down, and I throw it up, and we'll win the flank. They'll probably be more inclined to do it, and then the plan might actually succeed because they don't have like a lot of pressure put onto them. If you try to like, let's say, oh, I'll just trade you out, or I'll do this, and you just keep going on and on with the plan, it may fail just because you'll have a lot of pressure put onto them. Ideally, what you want is a simple plan that works effectively, that doesn't overly confuse the rest of the flank.
Right. Simplicity is always best. Um, what if you're facing like a Mappen or like a Daniel E, and this is their lineup?
You just fuck the two guy up and just keep going.
You just fuck the second guy, and
yeah,
keep
no,
going
that
down
is
the middle.
that is perhaps one of the dumbest things you can do as a flank is completely disconnect yourself, because that just leads your two guy to just get fucked.
I noticed was that Daniel E was so spaced out from the line, but the edge didn't push him. So by the time that like you guys were trying to act like it's a normal line, they were already kiting. What you would ideally do in that situation is you would dive him instantly and just throw attacks. Get an up down as soon as you can.
I think it depends on the spacing, right? Because it depends on like where Daniel E exactly is, because then that leaves the one in danger.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm going to use NW as an example here. In NW, in group fights, the spacing is much greater because the players know their range better than in Holdfast. The reason why Holdfast formations are so dense is because the melee scene isn't as developed as, say, in NW. Once the overall skill increases, as it always will, group fights will become more spaced out because people understand the rangings better. So so if you the range is just it's everything really.
I think it depends. It depends how spaced out the person truly is, because if you say like he's all the way at the map edge, he is not even close to his second man, you would just dive second man instantly and you would wipe the flank straight off the earth. But if they're spaced out, it's harder to determine. I think I would probably say that the best case scenario for that is to have just a 2v2 scenario where the enemy edge and your edge just go off on a 1v1. And then the 2 and 3 would just have to handle a 2v2 scenario. That's probably the ideal if they're not spaced out to Kingdom Come. let's say if the edge is like all the way on map edge, dive second man. If the edge is somewhat connected to them, but like a lot of spacing, the best idea is to make it sure that your edge just 1v1s the enemy edge and just have a 2v2. As soon as your edge, let's say, tries to dive the second man, he's probably going to get backstabbed by the edge.
That's why the outer needs to be a good duelist as well, because sometimes you're just gonna have to be dueling the entire match. But you do want to try to break off whenever possible, right?
Yes, absolutely. If you can break off, absolutely try to do it. But otherwise, just keep trying to apply pressure. So like what I used to do, or not used to do, what I remember seeing is when people would like see someone spaced out on edge, they would block an attack and then they would immediately start running, and then they would already have like a decent amount of spacing between him and the enemy. So then the edge could just like kill the second man. By the time that the edge kills the second man, if they're like spaced out to shit, then your second man could just kill the edge or the enemy edge as soon as they come around and try to kill your edge. Very hard to say. If the enemy edge, if both edges are spaced out to shit, and you just and your edge just blocks the first initial edge attack, hypothetically, he could just turn around and try to go towards the second man. It's super risky and barely works. It only works if you're like, you know, from like the beginning that you're absolutely going to try to do that. Not something you can really think of on the fly. You have to like be like, oh, you have spacing, so therefore block an attack, and then you could just do a full 180, run the opposite direction, and try to stab the second man. It's also hard to say because no one does that spacing. No, I feel like any person that does that is just setting their second up for failure.
I've done it a couple times in pickups.
I know you want me to pick up stuff.
Well, spacing out and then collapsing is one of the best things you can actually do as an edge, but we won't get into that now.
I mean, I did it against like Adam like a
Yeah,
bunch of
it's
times,
like-
and he just killed him.
Yeah, because you just space out, get the mouse spread, then you can collapse faster. But that requires a lot of coordination. So
What's a good description for the 3-man?
3-man, the linchpin. Linchpin.
What?
Linchpin. He's either the one that can exploit the most or the one that, when he dies, loses the most.
He basically sets the tone for the round.
I wouldn't say that because one already sets tempo. I just say 3-man, most crucial, is able. I don't know.
A
It's like, 'cause
crucial
with
connector.
three, if you die, your flank's now disconnected from your flank is now disconnected from your connector.
Stay alive, pretty much.
Yeah, and you stay alive.
Stay alive, support mid. Mid, but more so like your second and fourth man if you're playing third. Harder for me to describe it because I don't think about what I do on connector. To put it into words is a little bit difficult for me.
3-man can exploit the most, but he can also get exploited the most. If he pushes and makes a successful push, it's almost a GG. If he gets pushed and dies, it's almost a GG. It really just, but everything else is done to support. Again, then it's fun.
Very fun instance.
Cool. Is there anything else, like anything simple that the 1 or 2 men could do just to up their game?
Spacing is everything. Focus on spacing. If you're wondering
Spacing and coordination.
if you're wondering why you're dying so much, it's probably due to spacing.
So when you say spacing, are you saying be within 2-man spacing? Or
I am saying it depends on whatever situation you find yourself in. Spacing is everything. I'd put that as 10 and call it. Like, it depends on, it's an infinite possible number of situations and an infinite number of solutions to it, but spacing is always number one.
So when you say like spacing, you
with
need to tell people like what is
your
good spacing.
enemies, what the space between 1 and 2, the space between 1 and 1, the space between enemy 1 and 2. It's just
so like leave no gaps, pretty much.
No, you want to leave gaps. If you leave no gaps, you're just gonna get like attacked from different angles. The reason why you spread out is so that way you don't get threatened on the flanks. It's just, it's the most crucial yet least possible to explain part, because everything is, it's like in the infinite number of solutions. Spacing is, it's very,
It's easier to see
relies on
bad
it.
spacing but it's harder to describe bad spacing or good spacing.
It's
for that
like
matter.
once you like if you see it, you know what it is, but it's
Yeah.
hard to describe it. It's
How
just
about just like always be within
Spirit.
stab range of like the enemy?
no, because you don't want to be inside stab range of 2 as one. It's
Good spacing is basically not trying to let your like teammates that are beside you get stabbed by the enemy as easily without them like making
Good
a push.
spacing allows for trades.
not no. It's good.
I'd say
Like,
good spacing doesn't allow for target swapping.
well, everything's gonna be target swappable.
Everything is going to be target swappable, but if you have like decent enough spacing, there's a chance that you'll throw a target swap and it won't reach, or it'll just fail outright because it's like I'll have to just reach so hard that you probably have enough time to react.
But that I think we just leave it there then.
It's hard to
Uh,
determine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
hard.
spacing is the one you can't quantify it. It's just it all depends on the situation you're in, and that only comes from experience.
You absolutely could see bad spacing, and you could tell that it's bad spacing. You can't describe what bad spacing is.
It just depends on the situation. It just again comes from just pure experience.
Reddish, you want to add anything? Anything that you do that is successful?
I mean, pretty much they pretty much said everything that yeah, pretty much. But for spacing, to keep it simple, um, yeah, to keep it simple, you want to be close like to your left and right guy, but also like yeah, you don't want to make a big gap. I don't know how to say, man. It's like you want there to be space between your 1 and 2, but you don't want it to be as big.
Like this is bad spacing.
Yeah.
Right? Because
I
then
don't
you're
know.
opening up your 2-man.
Yeah, I mean, I play weird as a 1. I don't know. I leave a big gap, but big enough for where I know
Yeah, but
I can still make an impact.
at the same time with that, if they go and focus your 2, if you have a good 2, he's gonna S key, and now you get to pick on 1. It's spacing, and it's just hard to describe. It really just does come down to every situation. There's not one spacing that is above them all. It is just adapting.
Or how about like your spacing needs to have purpose, right? It doesn't like you need to do things like for a reason and not just like randomly just because you feel like it, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, not even that, because most openings occur when you're just kind of messing around almost and just seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, because it also depends on how they're playing. You can't control how they
Yeah,
play,
it's
right?
just it's so many factors that you just can't control. Is that planning ahead for it is just impossible. It's just being able to exploit those gaps when they do happen.
Now, would you guys all agree that 2-man is the hardest position?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would say that like anything else is harder than second man.
Yeah, no, 2-man is awful. Well, it's
Yeah,
fun,
that's
but it's
terrible.
awful.
I mean, your first either gets a pick right off the bat, or they block it and you just get insta like up down.
Yeah, it's just you have to like play with the mindset of a flank player, yet within the constraints of a mid player. It's weird.
I don't even understand second man.
You just have to be controlled. Like you just have to be in control of things.
The most that I could probably say about second man is that you basically just have to play, and you basically have to wait until something happens before you do absolutely anything. Because as soon as you do anything, then people are just gonna react to what you do. They'll just fuck you up somehow.
So say you're a second man and they're just staring at you. You want to stare right back, right? You don't
Yeah,
want to.
absolutely never do anything to pressure an enemy second as a second man.
And that
Never.
takes so much patience because you just want to stab them in the face. But if you do stab them in the face, they'll just block you, and then you'll get swapped onto, and then you'll die, right?
Yeah,
So it's
as
difficult.
ideally, if you are second man and the enemy second man throws an attack, it's curtains. They're fucked. As if you're a second man and you try to pressure the enemy second man, you're fucked. Not a fun role.
Right. Cool. I think we covered everything, unless you guys have anything to add.
Always communicate. Always.
Make
Think
sure
communication
you
is-
have make sure you have an Ethernet cable connection.
Oh, I can relate to that. Absolutely relate to that.
And then for 3, I guess to summarize, know when to turn the gas on and know when to put it in reverse. That's about it.
Cool. Hopefully, people can watch us and make something out of it. We were kind of all over the place, but I don't really know what how else we would do it. But I'm glad we did something.
If no one else is gonna do it, we might as well do it.
Yeah.
They can't say it's bad because there's nothing else to compare it to. Let's go.
Until they make their own comparison.
Okay. Thank you guys, and thank you everyone for watching.
Later.